Hello everyone, I'm Abbey Esparza with photomanipulation.com, and today our very own Dean Samed and I teamed up to have a little chat about all things glowy and my own personal process when it comes to creating fine art portraits. Envato Elements provided the gorgeous stock photo and is the sponsor of today's video. More on them later, however. Oh, but she does need a name, the image, so if you have a suggestion, go ahead and give a shout in the comments. I can't call her done until she gets a proper title, and I do quite like her, so she deserves one. Let's get right into the video.
Okay, Esparza, tell me, what have you got going on today? What's this piece that you're doing?
So this was something really off the cuff. In fact, I had tried and failed several different concepts before I finally found this particular image, and then it instantly, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, particularly with something with exaggerated facial features.
Okay.
But this was a rough one, to be honest. Getting here, there was a lot of half-built PSDs before I landed on it.
And when you say exaggerated features, is that kind of a subtle, slightly cartoony effect to the model, like a caricature?
Yeah, a little bit, but not so much like a caricature. More so like an illustration might be, you know, kind of something very pop art.
Yeah, stylized kind of.
Yeah,
You
stylized.
just enhance the prominent features just a little bit without going overboard.
Yeah, especially with what the final silhouette ends up being, it's almost barely noticeable, where it's much more noticeable now, where she's almost a little uncanny. But I think when you're doing something that's really, really dark, it's best to just kind of bring out the features a little bit more if it's going to be more stylistic. Obviously not if it's going to be a traditional like portrait. Don't mess with people's features too much.
Yeah,
But yeah.
otherwise the human eye can kind of recognize really easily if a human face is wrong, and
Oh,
it's just so easy to get wrong.
absolutely. Yeah.
So this
Absolutely.
particular piece, the overall theme is glow effects. Now, can you tell me a bit about your philosophy to glow effects? How much is too much? What kind of approach do you personally like to take?
Definitely it's kind of a less is more, but also more is more, just depending on I always think s- smaller areas of high glow
Yep.
with really, really dark areas will make the glow effect look like it's actually glowing, as opposed to it's just lit up through a bunch of like overlay layers slapped on top. The contrast, I guess, is I think key with glow effects. Uh, as far as my technique goes, it's building up light super slowly with a soft, fluffy brush set to a low, low flow rate, which I say all the time in like every tutorial ever, and it's not much different here. Most of this
Because
is just painting.
your approach to digital art is quite different from the rest of us, in that you have like a portrait retouching approach as opposed to a handed smash all the pixels approach that some of us guys take.
Oh yeah, yeah. I try and keep it to like a ratio of, I always say like 60-40 between like portrait and like a stylized effect, because I
Yep.
still want it to keep, I want it to be very photorealistic. Um,
And you
with
don't see
hint.
much of that these days. Everything is hyper stylized, like really stylized.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's a time and a place for more of the photorealism angle. So there is you, there's me, and there's Clinton flying the flag for this
Mhm.
kind of. Can you tell me a bit about the layer blend modes that you're using to build up the highlights on the cheekbones?
Oh yeah, so this was completely experimental. It's not like a process that I
Yep,
have ever really, I think, successfully done before, probably because I don't do too many, like, underglow effects,
yep.
um, but I can't even tell you what the layer modes now are. Unfortunately, when I do speed arts now, just for my own sanity, I do record at my normal, on my normal screen resolution, and I squish it down to
Okay,
1080p. That's why
yep.
everything's very small. I only do that for speed arts, and it won't be the case in any kind of, educational material, um So hopefully, if you kind of look real hard, you can see what the
Well,
layer
it's a
modes
bit
are.
disorienting for me because your layer stack is to the left, and that scares
Oh
me.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
why? Tell the guys. Some people watching this will be new to the channel. Can you explain to the good people at home why your layer stack is on the left?
It's literally just for the sake of real estate, so I can have them going from top to bottom, purely vertical, because I use a lot of layers, and it
Yep.
annoys me to scroll. Like when I see people who have their layer box and it's like, it's like the pixel equivalent of a few inches high. I
Yep.
don't understand that. Yeah.
Yep. I do have quite a tall layer stack. I have one of the most minimal workspaces I've ever seen in the Photoshop space. I literally have almost nothing visible.
Mhm.
But yeah, it always amuses me seeing your layer stack to the left.
Oh yeah. I forget that it's different.
Are you
I've
use
been doing it for years. I've been doing it
Yeah?
for years.
Are you using any specialist brushes for doing these particular strokes, or is it the classic go-to soft edge brush?
Yeah, a good 90% of this is a soft default round brush. There are some specialty brushes, nothing crazy though. Almost all of them are just made out of a default round brush.
Okay, so you've just changed the parameters like the
Yeah.
tapering or the transfer, and
Yeah, exactly. Specifically for like I paint some stars and that's obviously just a randomized hard round brush as well
yep.
as like a glitter effect. I'm trying to think. And then there's like one or two other ones, but they're used very infrequently.
Your
The
use of brushes is way more sophisticated than I've ever been, and you rotate the canvas as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, especially since I guess I've always done it, but since I got the Cintiq, I do a lot more painting.
Yep.
And so it's always flipping around all crazy.
Can you tell the guys at home how you rotate the canvas and the benefits of doing that?
I believe the shortcut is R, but I use the little
Like a
I don't know if
hotkey.
anyone can see. I use the little Cintiq remote thing.
Oh wow,
Um, yeah, it's fancy, super fancy, but it has like a little scrolly wheel, so that's what I use. As far
that
as
is
why, it's exactly like if you were drawing and you turned the paper, to
yep.
get a better angle. Otherwise, you're just like painting upwards, and it's weird.
It is weird. The remote control thing that you've got, did that come with the Cintiq, or was that like an
Oh yeah,
add-on peripheral?
no, it comes with it. I think it's like $70 if you want it separate, but it only works with the Cintiq, so it's like it's mostly just if you break it and need to replace it. But it comes with it. It should come with all Cintiq models that are pro. I don't know if the non-pros do. They
Yeah,
should.
mine didn't come with that. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about your brush settings, particularly flow, opacity, pressure sensitivity, size? What kind of settings would you typically use? I know each project's different, but
So the big one for me is always flow rate, learning to paint with a lower flow rate, like sub 25%.
yep,
And oftentimes I'll go down to sub 5%. And that's then me using a super light touch while I paint. And then I build up really, really slowly. Um, that gives you so much more control. It makes much more organic shapes. So it's not just a blob of light. Um, I don't touch opacity most of the time because I
you
use
leave that
flow.
as is. Yep,
Yeah, 90% of the time. And then pen pressure and size sensitivity. Um,
you
that
you
depends on what I'm painting. I'll turn it on and off as I go.
yep. Okay, yeah. Is it the I think I've since you and Clinton started mentioning it, I've started using flow as opposed to opacity. What's the benefits of using the flow setting over opacity?
You get a much more transitional uh things. It's a build up as opposed to having to keep lifting your pen. So you never have to
Okay,
lift the pen with flow. It just builds up kind of like a airbrush, I guess, like every
yep,
time you pass over something. So it's more so it's complete preference. I don't think one's better than the other. It's just like I've always used flow and never mess around with opacity. Um, and two, sometimes opacity is better if you know you never wanted to go above this much, this level of opacity. Where flow, you can mix flow and opacity together
Yep.
if you want the build up, but you never wanted to go above 50% opacity, you know.
Okay, and there's a setting there called smoothing. Now, I've personally never messed about with smoothing. Is that a default, or is that something that you've put into place there?
Photoshop sets it to 20% by default, and I
Yep.
almost never touch it unless I'm really struggling, because I'm not a digital painter by any means. I wouldn't
Yep.
even say I'm a bad one. I'm just like not a digital painter. I can paint small details when I need to, like the tears and stuff. So if I'm really just screwing up a line, I'll get frustrated and I'll jack that up to like 50%. Usually I keep it 20%. Thanks to Envato Elements for sponsoring today's video. I'm no stranger to Envato Elements. I'm an avid user, and it's always one of my first suggestions that I recommend when asked about which premium resource subscription to check out. Because there are literally millions of creative assets, fonts, graphics, photos, even music, so much more, to be honest. The best part is that it's unlimited downloads for one straightforward monthly fee with simple commercial licensing. No monthly limits means not having to worry about wasting or managing credits. And if you're at all like me, who has to download 20 assets before finding the exact right one you need, that makes things a lot less stressful. You can find out more using the link down in the description.
Can you explain a bit about these kind of swatch things you've got going on the right? Looks like you've got pre-made kind of palettes, sickly, blood, gold, pastel. What's all that about?
Yeah, so those are all just color palettes. I particularly the blood and gold ones are the ones I use pretty regular. If I'm painting blood, they're just pre-made colors that I know I'm going to use, so they're just there for
Did
for that.
Did you download them? Where did you get them from?
The blood and gold ones are based on a super old palette I downloaded years ago, but I've since like changed the colors up. And then
Okay.
sickly, I think flushed and fevered, those ones are all custom made.
Okay, so how will you be making these particular swatch palettes available to the guys watching as a
Oh
download
yeah.
at some point?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I have. Go ahead.
I have a little resource pack that I'm putting together. It'll have brushes, palettes, LUTs, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's wicked. We should definitely do a video on that when they're available and live. Right, now getting into the theme of the video, the glow effects. What are the main techniques that you're using to lay down these lightened bluish vibrant tones and the kind of rim light stuff you got going on here? Can you explain a bit about your process, please?
So I will say when doing any glow effect, the main I like to use the main bulk of the glow effect is done using an inverted layer, right? So you invert the shadows into the bulk majority of where the glow is hitting, and then from there I enhance the glow. I
Can
wouldn't
you
be
just
able
just
to
break that down just for me, just how what that means, how you do that?
if you want the perfect glow effect to anything, including like if you want any kind of inner glow effect where if something is actually on fire and you're dealing with shadows, because obviously that's not going to exist within a fiery environment or whatever, take whatever you want to be lit up, duplicate it, make it black and white, invert it, and then set it to whatever the color you want that rim lighting to be. And then
how would you set that color?
I like to use hue saturation. You could use anything. You could use layer modes and a color fill layer.
Do you do that direct to the pixels, or do you use an adjustment layer and then clip that? How do you do that process?
I use almost exclusively smart objects and then smart filters and or
Ah,
yeah,
okay. And you've done a dedicated video on smart objects in case the guys want to get more info on that.
absolutely. I
Yeah,
almost exclusively use smart objects now, unless it's a painting layer, because obviously you can't paint on a smart object.
absolutely. Yeah.
But anything that is even minorly major is a smart object. That's why my file size are huge.
Yeah.
Everything's a smart object, everything has layer masks, everything stays intact, and I work non-destructively as possible. Um,
Cool. Guys, if you are getting value from this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. It's free, easy, and really supports the channel. What kind of brush are you using for these eyelashes?
Default hard, it might be a soft round brush, but I think it's probably a hard round brush, yeah.
And
I do
I've got
have,
the
yeah.
shape dynamics, so that's where it tapers off at the end, yeah?
Yes, yeah, and this is just because I have a pen tablet.
And that's I'm looking at the top left there. You're switching between a 4 and 7 pixels for thicker and thinner eyelashes.
Yeah, when doing eyelashes, you really want to make sure you have a variety. I think a lot of people mess up and they'll just
Just use the
create
one
like
width.
and you need to taper them. And even if you don't have a tablet, if you ever need to taper, especially small lines like that, just erase with a soft round brush
Yep.
the very ends and it'll taper naturally.
Cool.
Naturally.
And the rim light on the forehead, so the moon is emitting light and it's catching on the bottom of the chin and the front of the forehead. Did you use that invert technique to create the tones, the rim light tones for the chin and the forehead?
Yeah, particularly on you can see it on the bottom of the chin and the
Yep.
neck, and then the what's that called? Like the décollage, the neck bones, whatever.
Yeah, collarbone.
Yeah, collarbone. I can
Yep.
only think of a fancy word for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's doing the where it's just an inverted version of the subject, set to screen, and then the color blue.
I've never used that process before. I think I'll be stealing that one. Hopefully, Matt F. Barnes will put this up as a standalone quick shot tip.
If I explained it well enough.
Yeah.
But where I got that from, he didn't do a tutorial or anything. I could just tell that's how he does it. But this is how Necro does his.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see it in anything he does fire. And I was like, yeah. So I just
There
kind
you
of
go.
recreated myself. Shouts to him.
The more subtle lighting going along the lower part of the jawbone, it looks like it's less sharp and it's more of a dissipated kind of soft edge brush vibe. How would you have done that bit where it's less stark than the outer rim lights?
Just a default round brush. It's the low flow, so
Yep.
you can build it up only as harsh as you need it in the area that you need it, and that's why it tapers and then flows upward really,
And then
really
again
softly.
with that, if you want to shape things back, you can switch to an eraser and kind of edge away at the edges.
Most of my painting is laying down a lot of something and then erasing what I don't want. So it's almost
Yeah.
like you work backwards.
But that's how you get a very kind of professional and elegant finish to your work, because your work looks very different to most other people's, especially in the YouTube space. It is very unique because your approach is unique, is very different.
I'm very detailed based. It's a little bit more methodical. It's also kind of like there's parts of this where when I was doing it where I was just kind of vibing. So I start like just picking at little things because I'm just having a good time. It's not always just like sitting down to like finish the product. Sometimes I just
Can
kind
you
of
tell me about the main stock image, the source image, and the kind of the springboard of inspiration to get the gears rocking on this one?
Yeah, so this image, unfortunately, everything else about it was, created from scratch.
That's not unfortunate. That's being a
Well,
badass.
if anyone, if anyone wanted like the moon or the stars or anything, but you can see they were created very, very easy just using
Yep.
shapes. But the actual stock image was from Envato Elements, and I love it. Like the second I saw her, it was just because I've been at it for about 2 days trying to think of something to create and creating like failed, sketches or photo bashes.
Oh, I've been there.
And yeah, and then I saw her and I was like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do because she had such like the way her neck is elongated. I was like, oh, it's poses like this that I think are super rare because everything is very like beauty and like posed well.
Yeah.
Where
I don't know if it's the right word or not, but there's a word called supine that I think may be the correct. If I'm wrong, I'm sure the guys are going to hollow in the comments below. But yeah, I like those kind of bendy poses. A lot of my most successful pieces have the model is kind of elongated or stretched.
Oh, I will say that these Galaxy PNGs, I end up removing them. I kind of regret it now. At the time, they felt a little bit too much. Like I always go back and forth between too much detail and like not enough detail.
Yeah.
Um, but those Galaxy that kind of stick around for a little bit, those are from Envato Elements too, and there's some of my favorite stock that they actually have. They're really cool.
Because your artwork is it's an exercise in restraint. So you manage to find the delicate balance between right and OTT or too much, which can be really hard sometimes finding that balance.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
My favorite aspect of this image is the ice vapor coming out of the lady's mouth. Can you explain a bit about the process of creating that ice vapor?
Yeah, so unfortunately, stuff like that will need a tablet. And I only say unfortunately because I know some people kind of then you just go like, well, I don't have a tablet, so I can't do it.
Yep.
And to which I kind of say is, you don't need an expensive tablet. Like
You
a
do not.
$30 tablet will get you can use it for years, right? I
Yep.
think everyone's convinced they need like name brand, and you don't. And I know that sounds hypocritical because I just said I use the Cintiq, but I only bought that within the last like couple of years. So
Yeah, absolutely. Then the tech is getting really good. My buddy whose son
Oh,
is going to an art college, he said, my son needs a tablet. I said, the kind of lower end and mid-range tablets, they are
they're
perfectly,
not even low
especially
end
for a young guy.
anymore.
They
Yeah.
they have the levels of pressure sensitivity. You don't need the fanciest Wacom, especially if you're new. Like most tablets will get the job done these days. Really, that's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, they're not even like off-brand knockoffs anymore. They're proper. Like Huon is, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
Yeah.
they're a brand. Like if my Cintiq were to break, that's who I would go to. Because they also innovate much faster than Wacom, who I
Okay.
also mispronounce all the time.
On the back of the model there, it looked like you was just laying down pure white tones. If I looked at the layer, that was set to normal. Did you just beef that up with a bit of a normal?
Yeah, a lot of the I try not to do too much. Like with rim lighting,
Yep.
my biggest tip is to make sure you follow the curves of the actual subject and not the edges of the layer. Because what a lot of people do, they like for instance with the chin, how it follows up, but then I make sure that because if it's a 3D, person in a three-dimensional place, the light
Yep.
would be catching both the left and right jaw. A lot of people will forget that and instead just follow the edge of the actual layer,
Yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes sense.
that's what I would do. I would get that wrong. I'm not good at rim lighting in any capacity. I don't know why. I would like to get. I think doing this channel, I will by proxy get better at everything because for the first time in my life, I'm deeply analyzing everything. So I do think I just need time to make artwork. That's all I need.
Oh yeah, it's literally just practice with everything. Like I think a secondary thing is also just tapering things, tapering the rim light really well. Otherwise, I always say avoid making it look like you applied a stroke like layer effect where
Yeah,
it's just a line across the whole
absolutely.
image. Yeah.
Can you just elaborate a bit more on the vapor effect and how you achieved that? Was that similar to the other processes that you've done?
hmm
Strokes with very low flow. So I see at present
Super
it's a
low flow.
15%. And then you said even lower. You said around
The vapor was probably done using a 1% flow.
1% flow.
And I just glide the pen across the string.
And that's how you get it to look so dreamy and ethereal.
Yep. Yep. It takes patience, but like I said, not really though, because it feels very nice. So it's just
You know what?
this is a calming thing. This is calm is happening right now.
I think I've struck upon the title of this video. I think I may be titling this one Dreamy and Ethereal Glow Effects, because that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, she has a nice calming presence. I quite like her.
Yeah, me too, definitely. They look like small water droplets and fragments. Now the water droplets, was that a brush preset or download? Was it something that you made yourself?
Oh, the droplets are done. They're done using the tier brushes that you can get for free if you head on over to the How I Paint Tiers video.
We'll put that in the description.
Yep. And they're all there. And then the video will teach you how to do something very similar, just a more traditional, but same process.
Excellent. Abby, thank you so much for sharing your process with me today. I really enjoyed that. And you up for doing some more?
Oh yeah, absolutely, always.
That's brilliant. Cheers.
Thanks again for watching, and feel free to find me on Instagram at Abbey Esparza, or check out the official PM Facebook group. I'm there quite a bit as well. If you want to see even more, you can check out my how to create glossy skin video featuring my favorite tool, Blend If. I'm Abbey Esparza with photomanipulation.com. See you next time.